It's the Captain here. Welcome to another episode of Andertons TV. And my special guest today, all the way from America, is the very lovely Dave Friedman.
Hello.
And it's we've met before, but we've never, had the chance to do this. Yes, I've been on your show, and now you're on ours, which is great. And I'm really pleased you could make it over. Yeah. So you have been making amplifiers for, or involved in the sort of music industry and doing mods for people and stuff for ever and ever, it feels like.
Since I've been involved in the music industry since 1988.
Oh, good for you. Oh, cool.
Since I was like 18 years old.
Yeah, so let's talk about, most people will know you probably for this and this, but it didn't all start there for you, did it? So where did it start?
No, it started, I moved to Los Angeles in 1988 from Detroit. Mm-hmm. And I started working for a company called Andy Brower Studio Rentals. Mm-hmm. They were a high-end studio instrument rental company, and they also did cartage for all the studio guitar players like Steve Lukather and Dan Huff, and the list goes on, Dean Parks, the list goes on and on and on. So that's where they're delivering the gear to the sessions and setting it up and tearing it down and taking it back, So I started doing that really early on, and then kind of snowballed in different ways. First thing that happened was he had a guy that would do guitar systems for guitar players that he was wiring for him, and he left the company.
Like a Bradshaw thing?
Like a Bradshaw style thing, yes. And he left the company, and I'm like, yeah, I think I can do that. So let me try doing that. And
what was your formal background then in this, pre...
No formal background.
So just a guitar player though?
A guitar player, yes.
A guitar player that just had so no electronics engineering, no formal?
No, not originally, cool. No. Just started working in the industry, which surrounded me with, when I say studio instrument rentals, I mean, we're talking every vintage instrument you can imagine, every kind of amp you can imagine. High watts, tweed Fenders, blackface Fenders, every one. Yeah. From Princeton through Twin, like every blackface Fender, every modified Marshall at the time, they were very popular, by Soldano and by Jose Arredondo and by several others. Yeah. So anyway, going back to the rigs, I said I can do this, and I started doing it for him. Because I was watching and I was interested in it. So if I'm interested in something, I tend to learn everything there is about it. Doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. And so we started doing that. So I started working for some cool guitar players. I remember doing a rig for Dan Huff back in his band, the Giant days.
And presumably, we're talking about a time where rack was everything, right? So
racks were everything, yes. Crazy racks, big rigs, big rigs. And then, working there is kind of interesting because everyone rented things from them when they were doing records. So I remember one time in particular when some guy was walking down the hallway, dragging his guitar behind him. This would probably be around 1990. Dragging his guitar behind him, dragging it on the ground.
No case, just...
Big long sweater, dragging it behind him, head down, kind of down the hallway with someone else in front. So, come to find out later.
Shall I? Right.
You want to guess?
I was going to get, are we saying 1990? Was it?
89, 90, yeah.
Like Kurt Cobain?
Yes. It's Kurt Cobain, you guessed it. Yep.
Bosh! It's very cool though. I just kind of...
We had no idea at the time, and we weren't even. We didn't even know that music. We didn't even know about the music yet. What was about to change.
For sure.
What was about to change? Everything.
Absolutely.
And
in the best way as well, because it again, we've talked about this on other stuff before. This was at a time where I think the guitar had become completely inaccessible to anybody that just thought, I'm just going to learn to play, because everybody who was successful
such a high level,
Steve Vai or Steve Lukather or just someone else called Steve.
Very high level,
And then Kurt Cobain was just like, no man, you can make great music. You don't even really need to know anything, you know.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But amazing songwriter.
Yes.
Yes. So
absolutely.
So that was just a little tidbit story.
That's great. I mean, I love it's so cool.
And you know, many other things throughout that time of meeting different people and doing that. At that time, Andy Brower then started. There was a store in Chicago called Makin' Music. It was a high-end retail store, like big store. He went in partners with Andy in a LA version of the store, which was a high-end boutique. Rig building and high-end, at the time that would have been high-end guitars, would have been like Tom Anderson guitars and various other ones. And I started working sort of out of the cartage part and into that retail end of it. Yeah. So I was surrounded by then high-end boutique guitars and amps and everything that I've been surrounded by, which is a great learning experience, the whole thing.
Sure.
Like I said, you know what every vintage instrument feels like and plays like and sounds like. You know what every amp sounds like.
Presumably on the rental side as well, a big part of that was servicing the rental amps as they came back in and making sure
that wasn't quite there yet.
Later right.
So in that time, a guitar player came in named Randy Jacobs who played in Was Not Was.
Okay.
And he had a Soldano modified preamp by Bruce Egnater.
What was their big hit? Was it Walking the Dinosaur?
Yes.
Yes.
He had a Soldano modified preamp by Bruce Egnater. And I knew Bruce from Detroit. And I called him up and I go, this thing sounds incredible. Here's what you need to make. So it was a 4-channel preamp. So that's when his first 4-channel high-end preamp was born, the IE4, the original one. And I became partners with him.
Oh, cool.
And that's when I started learning much more about amplifiers, and sort of he would be sort of the mentor, I would think, to me. Yeah. He has said that his mentor was sort of Paul Rivera.
Right.
So
I would have thought, I don't think I've ever met Paul, but I thought Paul was maybe younger than Bruce, but maybe not. I don't.
No, I don't think so.
Sorry, Bruce. But okay, cool. So a big lineage of
so that's how the amp started. Now, now I'm still doing rigs the whole time. I leave making music eventually, branch out on my own, still doing famous guitar players' rigs, and got involved. I made an amp for a little while. I'm trying to think what came first. I made an amp for a little while called a Naked Amp that I did custom for Billy Howardell from A Perfect Circle. This would be later 90s.
Okay.
And I made them all handmade, and they were, I mean, even drilling the holes in the chassis and everything, completely handmade. There's not too many that exist, but there's probably the original ones, a good 20 out there maybe or something. And then I stopped doing that because at the time there was no internet really.
Yeah, tough to get.
It was tough to really get the word out to people. It was not the same, It's not like now, which is a lot easier.
What was it based on? Was it?
Well, originally Billy Howardell asked me to do this, so he asked me. He really loved a Naylor amplifier that existed. It's from Detroit, Michigan, also.
Yeah,
and great sounding amplifier. And he asked me, I want a 100-watt version, so can you modify my Marshall to have the front end of this and kind of like a hybrid between the two? So that's what I did. So later that became his amp, which he still uses to this day, amps I made back then. Still has 2 really handmade ones that he still uses. And I'm going to go in a little deeper here, but as it went on, I did the front end design for Buddha amps. So the front end preamp design, the power section was there, Jeff Bober's, but the front end design of the Super Drive series amps, that was my design. And then after that, I kind of did a design with Roy Blankenship, which was a small builder in Los Angeles, where we did an amp called the Variplex, which kind of was a Variact Marshall Plexi sort of amp that was pretty cool. And then eventually my own amps.
And was this just...
This was like 2000, my own amps would start maybe around 2008.
And was this, I thought I'd heard something that a lot of your income and your industry contacts was coming from still making rigs and boards and stuff.
Still make rigs to this day and boards and stuff for guitar players.
So you just were meeting people and I guess you were able to say, look, I could try this, or I can make you this.
Exactly. So it made it a little easier to start because you already had the ear of all the guys that you've been working with forever. So you can go, hey, check this out. Do you like it? So
because what was the early Friedman stuff? I'm sure I remember some. It was like a funny, not funny, but like a room with like curtains or something. And Phil X did videos, and he would stand in a room and do. And that was kind of. We
still have that.
And that was kind of early.
That was an early Friedman, but before that it was the Marsha amp. When I first started doing it, called Marsha, where Marshall sent a nice letter to us that they didn't care for that too much.
I can understand.
But it got on their radar.
Yeah, for sure. Well, nothing like as much as it is now, that's for sure.
Yeah, so then we changed the name and,
So what was it all, what do you think the sort of, is it just because in the States Marshall has always maybe had this hallowed, because I always think growing up in the UK, we would have, however, we always had this flip side thing. So we had Mesa Boogie over here was kind of like, and Marshall was just like, yeah, everyone's got Marshalls over here. If you got a Boogie there, you must be something super special. This is like 80s, 90s kind of me in a guitar store. But it always seemed to me in America, it was kind of like, oh yeah, everybody's got Boogies over here, but you got a Marshall, you must be something special. Is that?
No, I don't think it's much that. No, there was a time when then Boogie was also, a huge thing, especially in that era, like in the 80s and stuff. It was a really huge time for Boogie. I kind of don't think, personally for Marshalls, I don't think it stopped existing around the early 80s for me.
Right.
So the 800 was the last... I think, real Marshall amplifier. And the funny thing is, at the time, the 800 were known.
Well, it's fine. I mean, we had an 800 in here for a long time, 2 or 3 years. And it never sounded how you thought an 800 should sound. And I think you realized that actually all the guys that used those amps and got great sounds out of them were A, great players, B, running them unbelievably loud, and C, probably using pedals in the front.
Definitely they're hitting with the pedal, boosting it a little hotter,
but having said that though, I kind of think I feel similar anyway, even about some of the older Plexis and stuff. What you think a Plexi is going to sound like, whether it's because you've heard Van Halen or whoever, and then you go, oh, I finally get to try. Not only do you realize that you haven't got any chance whatsoever of using it at the kind of volume those guys are using it, unless you are those guys. And B, it's all about what's going in the front end, always to get the sort of...
Sometimes, I don't know. The Plexi, no.
No, you just like that as a straight, just boom.
Just boom,
but
all
loud.
The way. Has to be all the way.
It has to be all the way.
It has to be all the way.
But so, because obviously I know...
Well, or maybe, it depends on the tone you're going for, but
Because I always thought with the, when I first started playing some of the Friedman amp, what were the amps that were out when we first started stocking it? I guess you would have been...
B100.
B100, the PT.
The PT and the small box probably
maybe.
Was
certainly Dirty Shirley and Bucks and Betty weren't out or anything. And my perception, and when you go, oh, this sounds like how I kind of think the Marshall should sound like, but I can never get the Marshall to sound like.
I've heard this before.
That was kind of my my sort of takeaway, if you like, from the early, from when I first tried a Friedman thing, a Friedman amp. Well, look, so what was your first Friedman amp? Was it the BE100?
It was the Marsha, which was the predecessor to the BE100.
Right.
Yep.
And that were you always kind of, because that's quite a sophisticated, multi-channel and different switching.
The Marsha was started off as a single channel amp that you could add features onto if you wanted to order it. It was total custom amp at the time. So, you could add an effects loop, you could add this, you could add that, you could add a cleaning channel. Then it morphed more into a standard product when it changed. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're I mean, you've got a fantastic artist roster and most of those artists just use a standard Friedman, you know, but you've got 4 or 5 guys, you know, Jerry Cantrell and Steve Stevens, Phil X. I'm going to miss some now.
Bill
Kelleher. You know, what are those? You know, when you meet those guys, you know, what are they? You know, what's it like, kind of making amps for them, and what are they typically kind of? You know, what are they asking you to do that? You know,
well, kind of originally started off with, you know, the basic BE amp, and then, okay, what do you want to hear different? What features do you want? What are you looking for, and what do you want to hear different? So it all kind of starts with one thing, and then we start there and sit there and tweak with them. I'm sure Phil X has told the story of him being in my shop and we were making his amp, and he's like, yeah, you know, I wish it could be a little brighter here or there, and okay, hold on, you like that better? And he goes, no, I think I like the other thing better. Okay, put the part in and change it, and, you know, you just keep tweaking on it till you get the results.
Yeah.
The thing is knowing enough to be able to interpret what they're saying into me changing something.
Because a guitar player will never say, could you change the XYZ capacitor for the different, you know, they're just going to go,
can it be more blues sounding?
Can it be more gnarly? It's like, what does that even mean? But okay, but a good,
But interpreting, but over years and years of experience working with artists in rig building and everything else, you start to learn to be able to interpret what they're saying and understand it.
Have you got you know, are there any artists, you might even want to say, but, you know, is there any artists you think, oh man, I would love to work with this guy to make an amp for? Or
Sure, Jimmy Page. How's that?
That would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah. So, what would you make, though, for Jimmy Page, though, if you, you know, if he said, come on, Dave, let's do the amp. I really need it to sound Zeppelin-y. And that was all you had to go on. What would you do?
I'd start with the Dirty Shirley and go from there.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, just keep it almost old school. Because what was his famous Supro amps? And
he used a variety of things: Supro, Vox, Old Marshalls, High Watts, a whole bunch of things.
And he's your guitar hero, is he? Your sort of ultimate guitar
hero?
No,
but you know, come on, it's Jimmy Page.
No, fair enough. Well, so the amps, you know, you know, you are one of a very, very small number of brands that weren't around in the 50s and 60s, but have established themselves now, you know, in a big way, and that is super, super tough to do. So congratulations on getting it to the sort of profile that it is. But you didn't stop there, did you? You just thought, no, I'm going to conquer the world of pedals, guitars and
pickups and we'll see what else.
Yeah. So
no refrigerators, though.
No, really?
No, I won't
should do a fridge. I mean, you should see how much money Marshall have made out of the fridge. You definitely would want a slice of that. I should say that the handsome-looking, long-haired chap that you've seen probably at various points in this video is a guy called Sammy that Dave's brought along, who's an awesome guitar player, way better than me. So that's why you're seeing him appear periodically in this video. And we'll put something in the description below about where you can find out more about him. But let's talk about pedals.
Yes, let's talk.
Was the BOD the very first pedal, or just the first one that went crazy?
That was the first pedal that went crazy.
Right.
It was that pedal and the Sir Compre were released at the same time.
Yeah. But that was pretty much your first foray into making pedals, or had you done stuff under different brands or worked with different people before?
No, I haven't done stuff. I've dabbled in some other stuff, but no.
So why? I mean, so obviously the BEOD, there were bucket loads of videos online, and that really was just trying to be a BE100. It
was trying to be a little box that you could plug into any old clean little amp to simulate what you do with the bigger amps.
So did you almost surprise yourself with the success? I mean, it's
hugely successful. Probably one of the most successful overdrive pedals in recent years.
For sure.
Thousands.
Yeah, no, I know.
Might be up to like 20,000 now.
Yeah, we've sold hundreds of them, so I know we'll only be a tiny percentage of the world, so you must have sold thousands of them. But, I mean, was it that kind of just went, oh, I'm obviously pretty good at this. I'll build some more, or what, you know?
Well, pedals are fun. I revolved half of my career around putting rigs together with people with pedals. I mean, like, you know, so I've seen all sorts of pedals over time. Now there's so many, though, I can't even keep up anymore.
Well, there's a lot of pedals, don't we know that for sure. Yeah. So how do you then, you know, given the fact that, you know, there's 1,000 drive pedals out there already, you know, how do you try and, you know, what's your angle? You know,
well, we came up with a cool drive circuit that really felt a lot like the amp and simulated it really well. You know, it's even with the amplifiers, it's about the feel of them also. It can't be stiff, it can't be too fake sounding. It sort of has to feel like an amp. So I think we accomplished that really well with that pedal.
Yeah, it's a killer pedal. And then I suppose what you've done is you've tried to replicate the types of tones that you'd get through some of your other amplifiers. So Dirty Shirley and the Buxom Betty.
Yeah, Dirty Shirley's a little lower gain. It has a mid-range knob. It gets a real fat mid-range, sort of like the Shirley does.
Yeah.
It does a great job at that.
But so the two new ones, which we got a little taste of, I think, at Winter NAMM 2018, but haven't had them yet, or they're
finally launching the 19th.
Right,
so in a few days.
By the time this video comes out, they'll be there, and that's the Golden Pearl, and a deluxe version of the BEOD.
Yes.
So let's just start with the Golden Pearl. I mean, it's a simpler looking
So the
pedal.
Golden Pearl is a light, really transparent overdrive. So really designed if your amp, let's say you're using that JCM 800, it's fantastic to just push it, tightens it up a little bit, pushes it, but really kind of still retains the character of the amplifier. It doesn't really put its character on top of it.
It's awful. Tightens it up and pushes it. So basically, is this a Friedman Tube Screamer?
No. No, it's not. It's not. In fact, it's not. It has nothing. Now the circuit's nothing to do with Tube Screamer. It's way more transparent and open than a Tube Screamer.
We should quickly hear it. Let's just, I mean, as I said, Sammy will probably do some more playing of this. But, so this is the
amp just set a little crunchy.
Off. And what have we got here? Volume, tone, and drive. It's really simple.
Volume, tone, and drive. You have a voice switch on it, which is 3 different styles of clipping.
Yeah.
So down is diode clipping, up is LED clipping, which is a little gainier, a little fatter, and a little squishier, sort of. Depending on what amp you're going into, you might like that better. Or if you're using it into a clean amp, you use it in that LED clipping mode, because it will really, into a clean amp, will really do semi-broken, you know, kind of, or cranked up old amp kind of tone.
Yeah.
Into a clean amp, where it's not a lot of gain, but it sounds like you cranked up an old, you know, like a Tweed Deluxe, or cranked up an old Supro or something like that into a clean amp.
Yeah.
Then you have a high cut switch, which is 3 positions, ultra presence. So in some modes, in some amps, you might want to roll off the sizzle on the top, depending on what you're going into. That's always
amp dependent, isn't it? Kind of. Some amps come out way too bright.
And sometimes you want the high cut on, but you might have the tone knob really high, because it kind of, tone knob's in a different spot, and it might give you a little more poke in the upper mid-range kind of to it.
That sounded great. Whatever we just did then.
That was dialed in for this sound here. Great. That's on the diode mode. No bright cut, and the gain on that was on 10 with the level up, and just pushing the amp to be more of the same sort of sound.
It did sound killer.
Yeah.
So the BEOD Deluxe, which is down at my end here, it kind of looks a bit like a 2-channel BEOD. Is it?
It is a 2-channel BEOD. The blue channel, which is the bottom channel, is a slightly lower gain version.
Right. So it's not the same set of controls.
Well, they're basically the same, but it's the gain's tamed down a little bit in the bottom one, so you can get more of a rhythm sound in the bottom channel and more of a lead sound on the top channel.
Can we, if we just make this cleaner,
make it into the clean?
We haven't set this up, so let's just see what it sounds like. So that's, and I guess if I wanted to, I could take the gain
down
a little bit and just have a. So it's still got a driven martially kind of vibe, hasn't it, to it?
And also what's different on these pedals now is you have the mid-range knob, where we didn't have on the BEOD.
Oh, yeah, cool.
So we added the mid-range knob. Yeah. So them off would be the settings of a BEOD.
Right.
And it's just an additive.
You mean as in all the way down?
All the way down.
A regular BEOD. Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's really not about scooping mid-range. It's about just adding more.
Yes, adding more mid-range. Yep.
And then we go to the red channel.
Yep.
Oh, lots of good. I like. That's great.
Yeah.
I've forgotten, to be honest with you, we have so many millions of pedals through here. I kind of haven't plugged into a BEOD for ages.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, I remember why they sold so well.
And internally, there's two, like the BEOD, there's two different trim pots where you can actually pull back even more of the gain on the channel.
Right.
Or boost it up, depending on who it is
I must
and
admit,
what you want.
it's so many times. I've had so many pedals that have had that sort of, there's an internal adjustment, and I always forget. So I just never ever adjust it. But do remember if you've got that. The two pedals on the top here I've got little valves sticking out the top of them. So is that something that you're a kind of a fan of, just sort of tinkering the idea about putting valves in pedals as well? Or?
We've had these out for a while now.
Yeah, I think we've stocked them.
Motor City Drive and the Fuzz Fiend. It's more of a, how do we describe it? So the Motor City Drive would be more of a kind of, I call it stoner rock, sort of thick overdrive kind of thing. It's quite a good sound.
That is good.
Nice and fat.
Yeah. That was way smoother than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more, maybe I thought it was going to be harsher than that. But it's good.
No, it's a smooth, big, fat, thick, good over.
Oh, I like it. That's cool. Yeah. Well, look, like you say, the valve ones have been out for a while. These are all, by the way, in Andertons. If you want to whiz down and have a play yourself. My legs aren't long enough to hit the wah, but that's also new, isn't it?
The wah is new. It is new. This has been out now for about a month now, I think.
Okay.
I don't know if you have it or not right now.
Past Dennis might know. Yeah, I think we do. Okay. I think we do.
So this has been really, actually hugely successful. Mm-hmm. We underestimated the response, and we've.
So again, what's your angle?
We need to get more fast, make more fast.
What is it?
So it's well, first of all, it has an LED for status of it on or off, which is guitarists sometimes get lost on stage and go, why is my amp sound so bright?
Yeah.
And oh yeah, I left the wah on.
Yeah.
So you have the LED status. You have a true bypass foot switch. Underneath the treadle of it, you have a 3-position switch that will change the sweep range. So the middle position is more vintage sounding. The bottom position is a little wider, starting lower. And then the top position is even more wide and exaggerated, a little more gain. So depending on what kind of wah playing you want to do. Vintage would be good for cleaner stuff. The other ones are great if you got a heavily saturated amp because they sound more exaggerated.
Does it sort of lend itself more? Because I went through a bunch of wahs recently trying to find one that I liked, and again I found that for kind of cleaner stuff, I like the stuff where the bass end really was fat and in there. But again, for driven stuff, you wanted something that was a little bit, for lead sort of stuff, you wanted something that a little bit kind of more bright and added perhaps a bit more gain.
Well, you have your choices, so you can pick your favorite.
So that's the idea, is that you just chose which one
you choose which one you like. It also has a pedal board buffer in it.
Okay.
That's on the output of the wah. That's on all the time, unless you choose not to use it. It has an internal switch that you can turn it off.
Oh, that's cool,
comes that way stock. Well, so you could use it. It's the same buffer that we use on our pedal boards and the buffer bay that we have on our pedal boards.
Well, we talk about, I mean, I'm actually not a great wah-wah player, and it's miles away from me. So you'll probably hear a clip of Sammy playing the wah-wah at some point or other in this video. But yeah, let's talk, you know, the buffer bays and the pedal boards you've done. I mean, you've kind of, is this really all harking back to your sort of rig building days?
Well, yeah, so we designed the pedal board, this 2-tier pedal board that's been hugely successful. Generally, people that get it are like, wow, it's so well thought out. Oh, yeah, well, that's because I had a lot of years doing it. It really puts the second row at a place you can really sort of hit things really nicely.
Yeah.
And then we have a little patch bay with a buffer on the side, the buffer bay, that is a great patch bay. And we have a power supply also to the Power Grid 10, which is 10 outputs, 350 milliamps per output.
I've never really, and again, I'm probably going to sound really dumb here, and maybe I just need to have read more of the internet stuff, but I've never really understood what the buffer bay, like what's the point of it?
The point is all your cable connections are coming off one spot. So let's say with this amp, you want to put some stuff in the loop, and you want to have the channel switching cable and the input cable. So we're talking 4 cables there, and it all puts them in the one spot. Right. Just all, the little snake can come up.
Oh, connect. I see. So physically.
Right, physically.
Okay. So you've still got 4
cables. It's like a patch bay in a studio. Would you like to patch everything in a studio separate?
I've had not spent any time in studios to even know what a pain in the arse that might be.
So it's like a patch bay, and then the input buffer. The input buffer is really kind of critical in pedal boards, because even if you have all true bypass pedals, if you go through a chain of true bypass pedals, you still will lose signal. Yeah. So with the buffer, it drives through those pedals, so you don't.
We were saying before, looking at my board where I've used like a gig rig kind of solution, same kind of thing, really, just like
same idea, sort of.
It's not an effect as such. It's just makes everything sound bigger, fatter, you know. Guitars. You know, with the very wonderful and hugely respected Grover Jackson. You did a thing with him, or you are doing a thing with him. So.
Yes, Grover's the actual luthier that manufactures the guitars. Guitars are fully to what I wanted, or my specs. So they have basically the idea of the guitars were always kind of vintage aesthetic and feel, but modern playability. So that's what we sort of accomplished. They come in aged, like this, this guy. It's aged, beat up. And if you guys don't like that, well, there's an unaged one.
Yes, well, you know, that debate will rage on forever, probably. I like beaten up looking guitars, so I think they look cool.
The nice thing about these is you can just, I can just lay it down on top of this pedal board.
You'd be like Kurt Cobain could have had one all those
drag
years
it down.
ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so you mentioned that I must admit I thought Grover had been perhaps more involved with the design. So he's just the builder, right?
He's just a builder. I was really specific on what I wanted. The bridges I chose, Godot 5 for the vintage S guitars, which we have here. So Godot 510 bridge, steel block, bent metal saddles, because I think a Strat only sounds right with bent metal saddles.
Yeah.
locking tuners, Godot locking tuners, so they're the vintage style locking tuners that you see here.
Oh, wow. So they lock from the top, do they?
They lock from the top. You put the string through and just wind it, and it will lock down automatically on the string, and then you just give it one more little twist at the end to make sure it's tight.
I don't think I've ever seen those before.
They're not as bulky, as the big Spurzl style or various other brands. Yeah. And on a more vintage style looking guitar, I think they're way cooler.
Yeah, this would look good. I mean, you winding all the pickups yourself?
The pickups are wound at Grover's. The specs of the pickups we worked on together, and we kept winding until we liked something,
Was there anything that you that you were able to bring from your electronics experience in amps that led you to try maybe different things on the pickups?
Pickups, stuff I've learned over the years in pickups. I'm kind of particular how they sound.
Right.
So I kind of like a sort of open, cleaner, PAF-y sort of tone out of the humbucker, but I like it also to have a little rock to it, so it can't be too vintagey sounding. So that's sort of what this wound up being. So it's open and stringy, and you hear the tone of the wood of the guitar still.
Yeah.
But it has this still this growl and this bark to it that's cool. And also the humbuckers actually sound great clean.
Right.
Which is kind of so generally humbuckers get a little barky on the clean, and it's
yeah, I mean.
Still sound quite nice, clean.
Does it? There's no coil tap or anything, but in this position, is it a
actually
split thing? It's not. So it's still full humbucker and a single coil.
But it sounds cool that way.
Still got that kind of quacky kind of tone that you want, hasn't it?
Exactly.
I like the truss rod adjustment.
Yeah, truss rod adjustment. So it's super easy because if you have to readjust that neck, it's sure a pain in the ass to do.
It's the other things. It's not too far removed from something you might be familiar with. It's just like a nice alternative to that.
And the other thing that on all the guitars we have what's called a zero shift neck pocket. So
the magical 2 bits of metal rods.
2 bits of metal rods that pop up from the body into the neck.
Yeah.
And when you put the neck on, it's tight already, and you can't normally on a guitar you can shift it, and you can't.
Did you patent that or something? Because
that was Grover's.
Yeah, because
that was we
couldn't work out when we first got these why it was that the guitar seemed to have so much natural sustain, and we saw Grover at, I think it was last year's NAMM show, not this year's, and he was like, I think that might be these pins.
Well, yeah, you have these pins that go from the body, right? So it's into the neck, and it creates a bigger surface area for a better connection between the two, and that's why you have that.
Yeah. No, they're cool guitars, man. Well, again, there's quite a few of these hanging up at Andertons. You can come down and check them out. There's S-style, T-style, and you did some more single cut.
We did a single cut. You don't have one yet.
No, I don't know if we ever ordered those or not. But anyway, look, Friedman will have pictures of them on their website.
They're just finally starting to ship.
Right. Okay. So maybe I'm sure we would have ordered them. But anywho, so where's the future? The future. If we had a crystal ball now and we could look at 2020 for Friedman, what's coming?
I can't totally say. Well, I can say one thing.
Go on then.
B100 Deluxe is coming.
Okay.
So the successor to the B100.
So that'll replace it?
That will replace it.
You heard it here first, maybe.
Ultimately replace it, yes.
That's cool.
And it's similar to the B50 Deluxe.
Right.
But not exactly the B50 Deluxe.
So more switches, more voicing.
We did a few extra things, which we can't say yet.
Okay, fair enough.
And that will be actually available at NAMM.
Oh, cool. And any
shipping.
new famous people that you're collaborating with or is that too difficult to say?
That's too difficult to say right now.
There's probably always famous people that you're collaborating with.
Yeah, there might be a few in my pocket here that we're working on. Not Jimmy Page.
Jimmy.
No, sorry. Yeah, please.
I don't even know. I tell you, the Telecaster thing really surprised me. So maybe he's in the mood. Maybe he's in the mood to do some stuff. You never know.
Yeah.
I could be the matchmaker, couldn't I?
Yes, you could.
Absolutely. Anyway, well, look, I hope you guys have enjoyed taking us through. I'm pretty sure we've covered all the things we should have covered.
Most of it, yeah.
Cool. Thanks ever so much, you guys, for coming over. Yeah. Thank you to Dennis for driving him around and everything. And I hope you've enjoyed watching Sammy play. Comment away in the comment section below if you've got any other questions. I'm sure someone from Andertons or someone from Friedman will pick it up and reply to you. But yes, I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.